kind of a full stack dev, but the last couple of years I've been working mainly in the front end, working on a very UX heavy project for a while, and now on a very UI heavy project trying to track emotions and both very customer centric projects. So that's me. I'd like to find out a bit about you guys. And you can just raise your hands. Are you all devs? Anybody else? BAs, product owners, testers? Hey. And what sort of tech stacks do you guys work on? Like JavaScript, Python, Java, and then like the stuff that you guys work on, the stuff you day in, kind of getting your hands dirty with. Do you understand the value that provides to your customers? Yeah. So that's sort of where I want to kick off. It's like and it really follows on from the keynote. It's like, how do we provide value? How do we make decisions about the stuff that we're doing day on, day out? If we don't understand our customers, we don't understand the business that we're aligned to, and that's internally as well. I think people say the word startup or this or that, and we forget that just because we're in a huge corporate doesn't mean that we can't take value from some of those terms. So that's sort of what I want to talk about today. Is how do we add value? How do we find out what's valuable? Because we create all these models, like the famous saying, every model is wrong, but some of them are useful. We create these models to say, okay, this is what our customers probably think. We create user personas. We try and become the customer rather than just asking them. So I'll start at the beginning. I sort of started down this journey about somewhere mid last year. I had 3 things bouncing around in my head. I've got a personal website which I registered in 2014, which still doesn't have a site on it. We have an internal blog where people can post and share information about the projects they're working on, the stuff they're learning. That was started as a side project and kind of evolved, and it's quite clunky to use and difficult to post stuff, so there's not a lot of, it's very difficult to use. And then the third thing is I've got a lot of side projects that I work on. Some of them I just want they're done and I just want to give them a spotlight and easily put them something on the web. And some of them, I think they're good ideas, but I don't know. And I want to put them out there and get some feedback from either people or industry experts and try and get some feedback. And I was researching one of them, I can't remember which one, and I stumbled on the JAMStack. I first found Jekyll, which is one of the tools that we'll talk about, but and then I quickly realized there's this huge world of the JAMStack. So what is the JAMStack, right? The JAMStack is JavaScript, APIs, and markup. It's really that simple. It's like a lot of buzzwords. You hear about them and then you're like, man, this is too complicated. I'm not smart enough to deal with this stuff. And then you unpack and you're like, but that's what we've been doing for 10 years. Like, why is there a new word now? And so this is all that it is. It's JavaScript for functionality, it's APIs if you need anything else, and it's markup to display. And it's easier to define it by saying what it's not, right? So it's any project that tightly couples between the client and the serverless on the JavaStack. Anything that's a standard CMS like WordPress, where you've got views that are built on the server side and then displayed on the client side, that's not the JAMStack. And it's anything that's a monolithic server. And none of these things are bad. They have their own use cases. This is just a tool in your toolbox, right? The JAMStack. So what the JAMStack provides and what is it's very, very fast. Everything is built at compile time. Everything's static. You really just get a bag of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, and you can put that wherever you want. If that's on your machine and you host it, or whether you put it in a CDN, which is what's more common, it's just a bag of HTML and CSS and JavaScript, so it's quite fast. That makes it very easy to host and very easy to scale, because you can put it on a CDN that distributes 1,000 points of presences, and now any customer anywhere in the world has these type of has your content at a point very close to that. It's got higher security in a sense because you don't have any moving parts. There's no database to crack. There's nothing. It's all client side, and that makes it a lot. That removes some moving parts. Not to say it's perfectly secure, but it does remove a lot of the moving parts which tend to break. and it's got a very good developer experience. The turnaround is very fast. You can see things happening very, very quickly, and we're going to talk about how to get that stuff out into the world. And I think that's key. Like we often say, how often has somebody come to you and say, I want to build an app. I've got an app idea. It's an amazing app idea. I mean, how often does that happen? And we're so quick to say, no, sorry, someone's calling me, I'm done, and I don't want to hear your app idea. Like it's normally really crap. It's true though, and like, I mean, if someone came to you, like in 2010, Facebook was like fast hitting a billion users, and someone comes to you and says, I want to start a social media network, or social network. But in 2010, 2011, Snapchat, Instagram, and Pinterest were founded. Pinterest has 200 million users at the smallest. The rest are bigger than that. I mean, so if we all would say, oh, sorry, no, it's a dumb idea, like we missed the boat. And we say that because most of them actually are. So how do you get from this is probably a dumb idea to this is definitely a dumb idea very quickly? I mean, that's what I think is interesting about the JAMStack. It's useful in a lot of other senses, and there's a lot of other uses like a personal blog and stuff like that. But there's a lot of tutorials on that. So I want to do a quick run through on trying to get from nothing to something by the end of this talk. So there's 215 frameworks that are classified as the JAMStack. Bloody JavaScript devs. I'm one of them. This is like the most popular ones that you'll see. My favorite is Docusaurus. I just think it's a cool name. That's sort of the sort of spectrum of how many projects there are versus what language they're written in. So obviously, again, JavaScript devs. But it's everything from Erlang and Lua and Lisp to Ruby and Go. This is just a ton, right? So these are the two ones that I really worked with. I started with Jekyll, found that first, and then kind of moved on to Hugo, and I've played with both. Jekyll is really, really easy to learn, but it's just good at one thing. It's just good at a personal blog. That's my personal opinion. It's great for putting a blog, but it doesn't have a lot of customizability. There's tons of plugins, so of course you can do that, but you have to roll your own solution. And the way that it's constructed is really, this is a blogging platform, and as soon as you stray from that, it gets quite difficult. So then I looked at Hugo. Hugo's written in Go. It's blazing fast. It's extremely flexible, it's extremely customizable, and the way, once you get the mental model, it's quite easy to deal with and say, okay, I want to do this is how it works. Everything comes sort of baked in, but if you want to do anything extra, you can sometimes hit roadblocks, but it is super customizable. It's very flexible, not customizable, very flexible. So we'll look at that. So I'm launching my own social media network. It's called the Hugo Book. That's what we're going to build today. Okay, so demo time. Done with slides. That is literally my slides done. Well, that's my last slide. And then, all right. So we're going to start off with. I've just got a Git repository, empty Git repository that I've just, for speed's sake, I've put that up. It's on Bitbucket, right? And I've checked that out, and I put that in a nice little project here. And there's nothing in there, right? And then,
No cheating.
No cheating. Well, some cheating. Well, I won't lie. I'll show you where I'm cheating. Okay. So this is my project. I'm going to create a new Hugo site. So I've installed Hugo onto my command line. That's very easy. It's a binary. It's compiled. Go. You don't have to have Go installed. It's a binary. You put it on your path. It's very simple. I'm going to create a new site, and I'm going to call it DevConf JHP. Right? So do that, and it fails because there's already a directory there. So I just tell it false. I don't care about your problems, and I've got a site. Okay. So each of those folders represents a different aspect, a different piece of Hugo, and we'll try and go through all of them. Really, the main one is here in content, so that's where we're going to start. I want to create a piece of content, so I'm going to say Hugo new posts my post brand.md. It's a markdown file. Okay, that's created, and there is my first rect. So if you open that up, that is a markdown file. That's got, that front part is called the front matter. That thing tells Hugo this is a file that you should care about. If it doesn't have front matter, it doesn't get processed. The front matter really just, it's metadata about that thing, what's the title, when was it done, and that flippin' draft thing, please don't, if you ever do this at home, don't, that draft through, it doesn't then build it. So if it's in draft, you won't build it. It's nice, you can write content for your site, you won't accidentally go up, you have to decide when you want it to go up, things like that. But for now, we don't want that thing there. So that's content. That's literally, I can write anything in there, which we'll get to now. So I've got a piece of content, and Hugo's server. Okay, I've got a server running. Localhost 1.3. Yeah. 3. And it's quick because there's nothing there. So Hugo looks like it's fine, but if you say, hey, just go verbose, there's a little bit of an explosion. And it's basically saying, cool, I found something, I tried to go and get a layout for it, and I don't know where this thing is. So first little cheat, we just need a theme. I'll get into that stuff now, but I want to just get content going first before we go with all that stuff. So I've just put a theme in the themes directory. That's what it is. It's a themes directory. You put your themes there. It's hard, I know, but you have to make sacrifices some way. And you name it exactly the same as that folder. So that's GA Hugo theme master. This works. So that, and then just go to that. And do we have something? No. Hey! Okay, now we've got a site. So it's that easy, right? I put a theme there. So what's happening is I've got my first rant, and if I click on it, I've got posts my first rant. If you check that URL there, I don't know if you can see it. It doesn't help you. But up there, can you see that? Yeah. So where I put that file is the URL that I get. And that's really there's a markdown on this side, there's Hugo in the middle, and there's HTML on the outside. This is all that just sort of happens, and we'll get into how that stuff works. But so now I can start writing stuff. I can go there and I can say, this is markdown, so I can say hello, and I can do unordered lists. And I've just got a markdown editor there on the side, so or markdown renderer, so I can see what I'm typing. But if I go here, it's got live reload, so it's automatically reloading in the background. I've got that. I can do one dot and then something, and I can just keep doing one dot something, one dot that. And if I go look there, it's now doing 1, 2, 3. So it does that sort of, that's markdown, that's standard markdown stuff. Very useful, very easy to write everything from blog post to documentation. I like markdown a lot, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Okay, so it's now compiling that stuff out, well, rendering that stuff out, and there's two types of pages on my site, right? There's a list, and there's a single. So a list is for lists of content, single is for one piece of content, sort of like the actual content. And that's how most websites are. You get a news site, you've got stuff, and then you've got an article, and that's a single page, and you've got a list page. There's a lot of sort of similarities there. So that's how we sort of style things. So if I wanted to change the way that this page renders, I can go to my layouts, and I can say create a new directory, or posts, yes. And then in posts, I want to target the way that a single is rendered. I'll just go for the HTML. This is an HTML page. I'll go there.
It's not in posts.
No, it's not in posts. Thank you very much. So I didn't say it. And there you go. Now I've changed the way that that thing renders. I don't have to change a theme. I don't have to go reconfigure anything. I just put an HTML page in place, and that's that. Right? Everyone tracking? That makes sense. Cool. So I can kill that and just create another. Start the server. And I've got a post as well. Let's draft. Just kill that. So there's my second apology, and so on. So you can see that now those two things have the same style. But if I move that second one into something else, just create a second directory called, I want to put that in there. And I go to, it's gone back to the original one. So changing that layout in the posts folder only impacts the posts folder, and anything else gets its own stuff. So you can start to play around. That's sort of what I say, it's very flexible. Like you can't necessarily customize too much of the way that the inner workings, there are plugins, there are ways to do that, but it does get quite painful. But it is very flexible, it doesn't really care. There's a directory structure, it processes everything through Hugo, and it dumps something out. So, yeah, so let's start building my friends. This is John London. And so this is John London. So now I can start adding, well, okay, so let's just check that. Okay, so that's there. So I want to change the way that this page gets rendered, right? So sheet number 2. I don't need that anymore. And here I'm going to do look friends. So that's just a bunch of HTML to create. Oh, and I need my resources. I've got, I mean, I'm not going to teach you how to write HTML. I hope you appreciate that. All my static is I've got a pre-built bootstrap, and I've got some styles which are irrelevant, and I've got a bunch of images. So there you go. So that's my friends page, right? So now I can start building out John London's actual profile. So I've got so John has a title, so at least I can put that on the page. So go to the single, and under his picture, I'm just going to do so that's a thing called emit. If you're interested, you can just write like HTML and CSS selectors and press tab, and it spits out HTML. You can do recursion and stuff like that. It just makes writing stuff faster. And then over here, so here I want to put in John's name, right? So in the context of this page, when I'm trying to render that markdown, there's a thing called title. So I can just say title, and there's the title. So that's the way that you reference things in Hugo. You've got the handlebars, and then the dot is my current context, and then any variable that is available. So those are predefined, sort of, those are Hugo variables. Title is one, so it'll grab that out of the metadata and display that for you. But John is more interesting than just his name. So here we will go and add his date of birth and his likes. Do that as an array. Okay. So if I go here, there's nothing actually being displayed. So I go to the single page, and same as I did with so the same as I did with the title, dot local, but because these are custom metadata stuff, I go to params, and then dot, and then I go to date of birth. And that shows his date of birth. And there's a lot of date formatting functions that you can do, but I'm not going to bother with those. So then the array, to get that array out, is obviously, I've got a list, an unordered list here. So I want to create list elements in there. So I want to run a range, is their function for a for loop. And then the functions in Hugo, this expression language, goes the function, and then space separated parameters. So I want a range over dot params dot likes, and go end. And then I've now changed scope, so now I'm inside of that range. So if I just say dot, that's referencing the current scope. So when I print that out, you'll see there's tomatoes and long walks on the beach, because that current scope is just the element in the array. If I had an object in the array, I would say dot, and then I could access any elements inside of that. And then I just want to wrap that in an li, so that okay, so there it's running as in the list. And that's sort of how you can start creating these custom things, right? So, any questions? So now I want to create a second friend, but I don't necessarily want to go and type out date of birth and likes every time, right? So there's these things called archetypes, and archetypes feel like a loaded word. They're extremely complex in other things. In Hugo, they're super simple. It's just a definition for your front matter. When we did that new, that was that front matter was the default archetype, which is this one. So if I want to do something different, I can just go and duplicate that and call it friends. Same name as that folder, so don't forget an S or something like that. And then I can just go and I don't want that draft, and I want date of birth, and I want so when I go and I create a new friend, say Susie Zoo, and when Susie is now created, she has the new front matter, and that's, you know, so now you're well on your way, now you can start creating these things. Yeah. Okay, so then if I go to friends, just /friends, I can see all my friends, which is a privacy leak, right? So I don't want to do that. So I want to just change the way that we render for friends, the way that we render a list. So I'm just going to create a new file, go to list, HTML. And I don't really want anything to display here, so I'm just going to do a script that sets the window.location to base URL. So when I make friends, it just automatically reads away. So yeah, there's no fancy functionality that Hugo is providing with me. It's a directory structure, Hugo output, bag of HTML. And okay, I think, yeah, they are done with that. So I can then those. So only other thing I didn't really cover is this config dot, yeah. So in this config dot toml, toml is like YAML and JSON, and it's just a way of defining stuff. So I can take that out. So this is just the definition. This is like metadata for my site. This can just be silly things. It can be variables that you want to use. Sometimes when you put in a theme, they do everything for you and it's all configured. and then you could set those variables in here. So it's just like a structure for your site. So then you can go here and just, okay, so I'm happy with that as well. Push my code. Right, so while that's pushing, enter Netlify. Netlify is a service. It's free. Its free tier is super amazing. It has a paid tier as well, but it has a ton of functionality. It's build, deploy, and manage modern projects, like what they say. So it's a build system. It'll deploy it for you to a CDN, and it's got a ton of functionality that you can put on top. We're going to use one, hopefully two, if we've got time. So if you go and look at their feature set, which is so it's got functions which are Lambda functions, but they've written their own API to extract you away from a lot of stuff, and they auto roll it into your deployment. The Lambda function goes with your code and it gets deployed, which we're going to hopefully look at now. They've got an identity API, so it's like an OAuth layer basically, and you can have 1,000 active users for free. It can be like a bridge into Git if you want to do anything in your repo, like a hosted CMS using stuff like this. You can overlay CMS over this. Static CMS still does the build process, all of that stuff, and it does forms, it does A/B testing, it does a whole bunch of stuff. So we're going to look at the forms. So the way I create a new site is I say a new site from Git. I say I want it from Bitbucket. And then I've got DevConf JHP. And then I say product set. Simple as that. I hope it's simple. I forgot. Okay, so that's picked up the first thing. You can open that up. And it did nothing. Because I forgot to specify a build command. So you can you can configure it there. You've got to tell it what the build command is, but you can also specify another TOML file, which is the third sheet. And I'm just going to copy that. So netlify.toml just tells the TOML how to handle my site. The first one command is Hugo. I actually didn't show you that. So to build this site, rather than saying Hugo serve, which just serves the stuff, I just say Hugo. And Hugo will spit out my site in a folder called public, right? So I use that public when I'm like getting issues with the way my site is, the layouts are rendering and stuff like that. You can just spit this out and browse through those files and you can see where your problems are. And you'll see that where John London is, rather than there being remember we had friends/John London, they've just put an index.html file in that place, so you don't have any .htmls or anything like that. Just some small, so you don't have to have it fronted by anything really. You don't have to have any Apache or Nginx rules or anything like that. It's just a bag of HTML files that works anyway. And it builds an RSS feed for you. It builds a sitemap XML for you, 404 pages, that type of stuff. These are sort of just things that come standard, but it all goes into a folder called public, which you can change if you want to. So Netlify, I'm just telling it that the stuff you want to publish is in my public folder, and I need to get to those labels. And then I've just told it what version to use because it's on an older version, so just force it to the latest one. Okay, pushed. So now I can go here and under my production deploys. There you go. By the time the page refreshed, it's found the code, wrote the code, built the code, and the site is now live. So preview the deploy. It gives my server a name, so you see this is Vigorous Visivara. And there's my site. I want to go check Susie Zoo. There's Susie Zoo. And I didn't set any data for her, but if I go back to John London, there's all that stuff. So now I've got a site that I built, it's deployed, it's global. They have, thousands of points of presence. And I don't have to spin up a server. If I get hit with 1 million users tomorrow, it doesn't matter. If I get hit with 1, it didn't cost me a cent. So now I've got something in the world that I can actually test with. I can run Google Ads against this, get some traffic, etc. So now let's fast forward a month, and I'm tired of answering phone calls. Please create me a Hugo book page. I'm getting too many of them, so I want to create a form on my site that people can actually use, right? How does the session end? All right. Yeah. Okay. So when I click the sign up button, it takes me to a sign up page which doesn't exist. So I'm going to quickly create that now. Okay, this is one of my cheats. So I don't necessarily want to always put my files in the same structure that Hugo dictates, I suppose. So let's say because I don't want to have /signup/what. So I want to put this file directly on that path, right? So when I create a new file, instead of putting it in a folder, I'm just going to say signup.md. So it puts it right there, and it tells me all that stuff. You're going to have to trust me that this thing now is going to render with that default list page because it doesn't understand where this thing falls in the structure. So what I can do here is I can say type is of signup. And then under that signup HTML, it's now referencing that signup. So that's got to go. That still has to follow the same structure where it goes into a folder. It's not called signup, it's called. So the layout still goes under the name signup to say what type it is, and then we still have the ability to put a single or a list type page. And then over here, I'm going to put Hugo work, yeah, I'm just going to have to go past. So you can create a form, and then you can put as many inputs in there as you want. And then normally when you create a form, you have to say, you have to do something with that post, that action that happens, right? You have to put a server, you have to put like some REST endpoint that will grab that file. It will grab that query, that post. But with Netlify, because I'm deploying to Netlify, if I just go like that, Netlify finds that thing, and whenever there's a submission to that post, it absorbs it and puts it in a form that I can see. Actually have that thing over there. Yeah. So there, that signup is the name of the form, and then underneath it is any submissions that were there. And if I click on them, that's the actual submissions, and I can download that as a CSV. So now I'm starting to accept forms, and then the idea was to go into Lambdas as well. So Netlify will, it allows you to deploy Lambdas, which it'll version for you, it'll deploy for you, it puts it, so normally you have to create a whole, you've got to really get deep into the AWS before you can deploy a Lambda. You've got to set up an API gateway, etc., etc. And the Lambdas will be deployed for you version, the whole thing, it happens after your build, and it goes to the root path /netlify/functions, and then the name of the file is that function name. And you can just query those things, and they give you 125,000 queries with 100 running hours for free. So as the site evolves, you can slowly push things off, like manual work goes into a form. And then forms actually can fire into a Lambda, but that functionality is paid for. But basic forms, basic Lambdas, those are free. And not basic, you can do whatever you want in a Lambda. Lambda is amazing for glue code, Lambdas can go into databases, Lambdas they can do anything. They're literally written enablers to touch every part of Lambda. So you can slowly evolve this site. And I'm not saying that this is a production-ready system that I would like to be maintaining for 5 years. I'm saying that this is a site that I can get up in 5 hours. And I can build it, and then as my user base grows, as I get traction, if any, because it's so little, I can do an experiment, and I can get traction, and then I can slowly, there is a path to migrate this into a real application that's maintainable, that can actually handle scale and have that functionality, and I can slowly offload those stuff to Lambdas that access databases, that this thing brings in stuff and uses other APIs until I get to, so you can slowly move this functionality off this platform to a point that you can just do a switch and you've lost nothing. That's hopefully the idea. Yeah, I hope that was useful. You, sir, have lack of fate with you. That belongs to you, simply because you sat there. I decided that chair beforehand and you sat there. Actually, there was one next to you, but I think it's unethical for me to keep it, so it's yours. And that's me. The last slide was, I learned through this process that actually I'm just a terrible human being, and the reason I don't have a site up is because I'm lazy. So hopefully by the end of the week, I will have a site there, and at that URL you can get the slides. I've got a working version of this repository which I'll post there, and resources that are useful to actually learn how Hugo works, not just like a fly through. So yeah, that's me. I'm here if you have questions, and I time. Thank you very much for your time.